All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Rumcast. This is the podcast that helps you navigate the world of rum by talking to the people who love and shape it. I'm Will Hookinga, and on the other line, I have my co-host, your co-host, he's everyone's co-host, the people's co-host, John Gulla, checking in from Miami, Florida. What's up, John?
What's up, man? You're going to blow my head up with the people's co-host there, because I might just use that in the future. The people's co-host.
You're referring to this podcast. The last episode, you called it the program, and you've called it that a few more times just in casual conversation since then, and I always point it out because I think it's funny. And so, I'm just trying to level up at the way we describe everything, the show itself, you as the co-host, everything.
Yeah, I like it. And this is such a distinguished program, Will, that we're a part of, that I agree that, we need the people's co-host here. We'll have to figure out your co-host name as well moving forward. I'm not that creative in the moment, but we'll get there.
You got some time to work on it.
So, Will, I have a short story to tell that I think is interesting.
Ooh, okay.
And I kind of want to talk to you and tell you this story and then also hear back from the listeners on this as well.
All right.
So I ran into a friend of mine at work the other day, and he happens to be a rum fan like us, so he knows about the podcast. He's listened a couple of times and all.
Nice.
And anyway, he stops and he says to me, John, I have to tell you something. And he brings his hand up close to my face, and he shows me this really bad cut on his finger.
That's a fun way to start a conversation with someone. I really have to tell you something. Here's my finger in your face.
It was a little weird. It was a little weird, but I'm like, oh man, what happened? Because he's like showing me this like grotesque cut on his finger.
Was it bandaged? Right? Did he like pull the bandage off before he came and showed it to you?
No, it had a dressing on it of a type, but it wasn't like just a bandage cut because it was fairly large and you could see some of the wound, I guess you would say. So, anyways, I'm like, oh man, what happened? And he says, well, actually, I have a tip that I wanted to share with the people on your podcast. And I'm like,
about
okay.
Dressing wounds?
I'm like, now I'm intrigued, right? I'm like, I have no idea how this is going to be rum related, but okay. So he turns to me, looks me dead in the eye, and he says, if you're going to have a fun night with cocktails, always cut your fruit right up front.
Ooh, waited too long. He had a few too many drinks before he cut up those limes, didn't he?
Exactly, you nailed it. So he's telling me the story about how he had so many cocktails with lime in them, and he was cutting a lime, and he ran over his finger with the knife because he was in a little bit.
Wow.
So yeah, here's the thing. I was like, I told him I'd share that, and then I wondered, like, does this happen to a lot of people out there? Like, is this a thing? Especially like with like home barring now because of COVID and all that. Do we need to give this condition a name?
It sounds kind of like, I thought that was actually the field sobriety test in Florida. If you got pulled over, they handed you a lime and asked you to make a daiquiri.
I would be down for that. I love
and
that.
If you cut your finger, you're over the limit, and they take you to jail.
That should be the new procedure for sure. But yeah, so I was trying to figure out, do we call this like bar finger? Is that what we call this?
Bar finger.
Or rum finger? Or
bar finger sounds like you hear the barf part of it. So, although that may be soon to follow if you've had enough drinks. So maybe that's it. I don't know. Yeah, that's a good question. I would love to hear from some of the rumcasters out there if they have any ideas of what to call it when you have had so many cocktails that it is unsafe to operate a knife to cut up more fruit for more cocktails.
Right. And like, do you recognize that and say like, who somebody else needs to cut the fruit? Is that the phrase? Hey, somebody else come cut the fruit.
I think your friend at least deserves props for using fresh fruit. First of all,
he does. I
have a friend who got really into making daiquiris because he was asking me for recommendations. He knew about the podcast and he wanted to try rum. And I was like, well, you could buy some of these rums. And he's not really someone who drinks spirits neat. So I was like, you should totally make a daiquiri. Most people haven't really had a proper one before, and it's super simple to make one. Mm-hmm. And he fell in love with making daiquiris. I think he picked up a bottle of Appleton Signature and was just like cranking through daiquiris. And then he sent me a picture one day, and I saw one of those little bottles of prepackaged lime juice. And I was like, wait, oh no, you were so close.
Why?
Exactly. It's a dangerous game, It
is crazy, though, how many people still think that daiquiris are like the frozen, drink that are made with artificial stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, just, go to any kind of, franchise restaurant in the US and they'll have some sort of specialty, frozen daiquiri on the menu, which, I mean, sometimes those are good. I'm not trying to be a cocktail elitist or whatever, but, people need to know what a daiquiri actually is and that it's not by default neon red.
I totally agree, and think that the sweetness level obviously is different there, and the balance is different, and it's surprising to me. It actually happened to me this weekend where I made somebody a daiquiri, and they're like, "This isn't a daiquiri," and I had to go through the whole thing with them. And
what was your recipe?
Just straight up. So I used in this case the When in Rum Overproof.
Oh, nice. The Privateer.
Yes, the Privateer.
The Kate Perry
exactly.
Collaboration. Yeah.
It's really great. It's an overproof at 63%, so I used that one because I wanted something a little stronger for me, and they got it too. Also, it was 2 ounces of that, 1 ounce of lime juice, and 3/4 of simple syrup. But nice, I used the turbinado or whatever.
Turbinado sugar, Demerara sugar?
Demerara sugar, that's the one. Yeah, nice. I used the Demerara sugar. So it's a little darker, but I don't mind that and love the added flavor in it. So yeah, that was the classic daiquiri this weekend. And with the little lime wedge, like my bartending game, my mixology game is coming up.
And no cut fingers.
No cut fingers, because
you didn't stick your finger in the camera at the beginning of this recording and say, "Hey, Will,
look, Will,
check it out. Here's a disgusting wound."
Yeah. So, but I had to convince this person that was a daiquiri, and they told me no, it wasn't. And they're like, "No, this is like a margarita." And I was like, "Yeah, but it's rum," which they're similar, right? There's some similarity there.
Yeah. No orange liqueur in the classic daiquiri. But yeah, I think I usually go with the 2 ounces. 3/4 lime, 1/2 ounce simple for mine, but I think since you were using a rum at 63%, I probably would have leaned toward the ratio that you used as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I like your recipe too, actually. A lot of times I will just do the 1/2 ounce. Well, going from that and thinking about how we rate rums and how we think about rating rums, I think we have a special guest on today that a lot of people are going to enjoy.
Yeah, we've got a heck of an interview today. This was really fun. We interviewed a guy named Jay West, and I introduced him like that because he's one of those people where you may know him without actually knowing his actual name because... Yes. For many years, he's been reviewing spirits online under the username t8ke. That's with an 8, the numeral 8 instead of the A, so t8ke. And
it looks right when you see it. Like when I say it looks great. No problem.
It's awkward to explain the spelling on a podcast, but it looks perfect and you get it right away. But anyway, so Jay, I'll refer to him as Jay from here on out. He's written over 2,000 reviews of spirits since 2015, including a ton of rum reviews. And he basically started out publishing reviews on Reddit anonymously under that username t8ke. Over time, got really involved in various spirits communities on that site, developed kind of a big following of his reviews. I think he was posting like a review a day for years. And obviously there are tons of people who review rum out there, but I think what sets Jay apart a little and what kind of drew us to wanting to have him on the podcast was the reviews are cool, and we'll get into that in a second, but also his involvement as a founder of the Aficionados Group, which has actually released a good amount now of independently bottled rums, including many I'm sure you've seen if you're listening to this and you are active in any rum communities online. So there's kind of 2 different lines of rums they've done at this point. The first one was the XXX Rum Series. So if you've ever seen bottles online that are kind of starkly labeled, it's like a white label. You see big letters that say XXX, and then in just really tall, really small, tiny writing, there's the name of the distillery or the country where it came from, and the ABV, maybe the age, and that's basically it. Like it's very minimal, but they've done releases, all aged rum, all cask strength. They've done them from Foursquare, Venezuela, Mauritius, Fiji. There's a couple more that I'm missing, but they have this tasting panel where they kind of blindly taste samples and they make these selections. And they have a partnership with a website called Fine Drams that help assist them with putting these, with sourcing the rum and putting these releases out. And it's been really cool to just, see online communities embrace these releases and really get excited about them. And then the other line of rums they've done, which there's one particular bottle from this, which you if you haven't heard of the XXX series, you've definitely seen this bottle of rum if you are active online. But it's a series of high ester rum releases. And the first one that came out in 2019 was a bottling of Hampton's t8ke mark, so the highest ester rum that Hampton makes. We've referred to it on a few other podcasts recently, definitely the one with Christelle Harris from Hampton. But so it's in the conversation for being the first release of that mark, just totally unaged. It was released at 69% ABV. So again, this is a high ester mark that is usually released in blends or used in blends in small quantities and things like that. And it was really unusual to find a bottling of it just unaged, 69% ABV. You can finally taste t8ke and its like natural habitat kind of. And the label of the bottle was like kind of dark and brooding and imposing, and it just kind of like went everywhere across the rum internet ecosystem.
Quickly.
Yeah, you just saw it everywhere. You saw people, like reviews people would write about it and reactions people would have to experiencing this rum that's so unique and so aromatic and so funky. It was just really fun to see all these different reactions to this rum. So the Aficionados Group did that release. They also just released 2 more high ester rums, one from Le Gallion in Martinique and one from New Yarmouth Distillery in Jamaica, which is the kind of mysterious distillery that's owned by J. Ray and Nephew that it's like always hard to find information about online. So they've done these really cool releases. And I think one thing when I talk to other people who are fans of rum, a lot of times we'll see these releases and people be like, man, it would be cool to like, get a group together and release a rum. And you've had some experience with that with Florida Rum Society now, doing barrel picks and stuff like that. So I think it's something a lot of people have seen and people have wanted to be involved with it because they have that community aspect of like picking people from the r/rum community on Reddit to be on these blind tasting panels to help select some of these things. So it's very community driven. It's very cool. And so you combine that with, A, we wanted to hear about that. B, as we said, Jay's written tons of rum reviews, and he has a really elegant kind of review system, a scoring system that's become very popular with lots of reviewers, and just a nice approachable style, I think, that's really helpful for rum consumers. And so we wanted to talk to him also about, his approach to reviewing, how he's improved his palate, his ability to translate what he's tasting into words and things like that. So that's something that I, feel I have a lot of room for improvement on and want to get better at. So it was really fun to hear his take on that and just kind of his journey in the rum world. We also did something really fun where we got him, since he drinks so many other spirits, to recommend other types of spirits for people who like certain types of rum. So that was a really fun part of the interview for me. But I think if you have seen any of these rum releases that Jay has been associated with, you're going to love hearing more about those. If you're someone who wants to improve, your ability at tasting and stuff like that, or maybe you like to keep notes on rums that you taste, or maybe you want to write reviews or something like that. It's got a lot of good info about that. And it was just like a really cool, fun conversation, just talking to someone who loves rum and bouncing around different topics. But I had a blast.
Yeah, I think him coming from a bourbon background and still heavily involved in bourbon was something that resonates with me, as listeners will know that I came from that arena as well. I also like how he's got the engineer's mindset, and he talks a little bit about that. And I love that that's how his thought process. It's so intentional and methodical, and I think that's great to hear. So I'm really excited for people to hear it. I think it was a wonderful, fun interview, and we should just let everybody hear it.
Yep, let's check it out.
Hey Rumcasters, if you love rum like we do, there are 6 simple but meaningful words that are likely to get your attention. Single barrel, cask strength, no additives. Those 6 words are the whole premise behind the single cask rum releases from Holmes Key, the sponsor for this episode of the Rumcast. Holmes Key seeks out the world's best rums and releases them unadulterated and at cask strength in limited editions. Check out their website at holmeskey.com to learn about current releases distilled at places like Foursquare in Barbados, Demerara Distillers in Guyana, Travelers Liquors in Belize, and South Pacific Distilleries in Fiji. And be sure to look out for new releases of limited editions that are releasing soon in 2021. Find them at Holmes Key, that's HOLMESCAY.com. Now back to the show.
All right, so we are here with Jay West. Otherwise, you may know him better as Take, with the numeral 8 in place of the A. I know that's how I first came across you, Jay. If you've ever been on Reddit, in any of the spirits-related subreddits, you've probably read one of his reviews before. And I was looking up, I think it's at over 1,900 now, right? 1,900 reviews?
Yeah, it's, I think like 1950 something.
Like, were you in the middle of, I don't know, like, how you managed to crank out so many. I'm, like, afraid that we're interrupting your review process just by doing this interview right now.
No, you're pretty safe. I at this point, like, early in the days when I told myself that maybe if I could just do one a day for a week, maybe it'd be fun. And I assumed I'd give up by the end of the week. And obviously that's not the case, but I try and get one done, one a day, but now that it's also kind of my job, I try and get a couple out over the weekend and stuff. So you are free and clear.
Okay, got it. Yeah, didn't want to interrupt the creative process, but so just to speak a little bit to kind of your origin story. So that started back in 2015, right? When you first, so it was purely just like hey, I'm going to do this for fun, try it and see what happens kind of thing.
Yeah, it was actually, it was very much like, it was a very big YOLO moment, right? Like, oh, okay, I wanted to get into spirits, but coming from an engineering background, it was really easy. And just have exiting university, which is not something I told people for a very long time. Like in 2015, I had actually graduated university, so I was pretty young. And that's why I chose the cloak of anonymity, is because like spirits people are kind of known to be curmudgeon-y and like, who wanted to listen to a 22-year-old? But
right. At
the same time, I learned, in university, the best way to try and understand what you know and what you don't know is to also try and teach people, right? Like you'd learn a skill, and if you could competently teach it to other people by way of writing or lecture or, speaking, it was a very good gauge, and it helped people understand very quickly what they did and didn't know about spirits. So I thought, okay, I'm just going to start writing reviews, and the internet will, and especially Reddit being as unabashed and just like vicious and cut to the core, no bullshit. So I figured Reddit would be a really great proving ground. Like I'll write a review and every day someone will tell me how wrong I am and I'll learn from it. And if I can stick it out a week, then, maybe I'll learn some stuff. And clearly that worked out pretty well because it's 6 years later and I'm still doing it. But yeah, my origin was I wanted to write to learn. And that's exactly what had happened.
I love that you brought that up because I think John is the same way. We've both felt that way about, starting a podcast about rum. I think you always tell yourself, like, at what point do I have permission to, be someone doing this, right? Like, do I know enough about it? Like, at what point do you know enough to start talking about it more and things like that? And so I agree with you that I found learning by teaching is a great way to force yourself to try to understand something better. That's really cool. I want to talk more about the review process, how you approach tasting and things like that. But before we get into that, I want to start a little bit with the rum that people may be familiar with. There may be some people out there that have had rums that you've had something to do with, but maybe are less familiar with your reviews. But I think a lot of listeners will know you through the rum releases you've done with the Aficionados Group, which I think the first release you guys did was rum, right? The XXX selection in 2018. Yeah. How did the group come together, and how did you end up starting with a rum release? Because I know you review lots of different spirits, not just rum.
Sure, and that's a great question. So, and it really has an interesting story too. So I was not the original figurehead for XXX Rum. Guy, I believe his username was Just Some Bad Advice. This came at a very interesting time for Reddit. It was a time where Reddit took on a ton of venture capital money from China. Okay. And they had to clean up their image right as we were doing this. So Just Some Bad Advice was working with Jonas at Fine Drams and said, hey, I think we can do a cool rum release, but I need some tasters. Like, we want this community aspect. And a lot of bourbon people knew that I was drinking rum for a while. So like I wasn't super active at Reddit/r/rum, so r/rum.
Yeah.
And they said, hey, like you got to get this guy in the panel. And so he approached me. He was like, hey, you want to drink rum? And I was like, I do. Like let's fucking do it.
Was that like in a back alley somewhere? Hey, you want to drink some rum?
Yeah, he like opened his trench coat and there was like a whole bunch of rum. And
a little ester section underneath this pocket over here.
Yeah. He was like, yo, Fiji, like you want some? But, and so he was actually leading the very first selection. And I kind of got involved to help him with some of the logistics, but really it was this guy's like, hey, we're going to do the first one. And he kind of felt things out. And right at that moment is when Reddit turned up the heat. They banned Scotch Swap, which I was a moderator of. They banned like any kind of transactions, and they were incredibly heavy-handed. They were reading people's private messages. People were getting banned left and right. I've actually been banned, mistakenly, I will add, several times since the genesis of this. But we landed the plane on XXX. It ended up it was all blind. We did the statistics. It became it was a Barbados Foursquare release. But after XXX, he was like, you know what? I'm out. Like this was insane. And I've never been so stressed out. And I was doing
primarily because of the moderation factor from Reddit.
Really, because he didn't want to get like r/rum banned, and he didn't want to be banned permanently himself. And it was very well received. It took a little while to sell out. People were very concerned that this was going to be like an instant sellout, but it was the first rum selection, and it was being shipped during the holiday season in December, which we all know customs is absolutely just completely like horked. It's completely wonked. And it took people like 9 or 10 weeks to get bottles, but they started to land, and like he was kind of stressing through that process, but they landed and people loved them. And then, everyone was opening their bottles because all the wax cracked, which is great. Like there was zero secondary because the bottles arrived with like cracked wax, which was perfect. Totally didn't plan that, but it worked out great for us. And people started asking a really interesting question almost immediately after they got their bottles, and they said, well, okay, we did XXX. So when's XXX2 going to happen?
There's a 1 on here. So there has to be a 2.
Yeah. And people were like, you know what? We did a community aspect for designing the label. And the cool part was that the panel had kind of immediately agreed that like this label needs to be clean and it needs to be no bullshit. Like we wanted to just say what it needs to say. And that's the end of that. And people
so you succeeded with that.
Yeah. I mean, it's about, I have one of the fours here, like it's about the most minimal, everything on there exists because it has to. And that's it. But people kept asking like, hey, I love XXX. Like when's XXX2 going to start? And when the other guy was like, hey, I'm out, people kept looking around like, who's going to lead this thing? And I was kind of like,
you're like, I will take the ring. I will take it to Mordor.
I guess that's me. Yeah. Like I will Frodo Baggins this all the way. And it was fun because I was doing barrel stuff for our bourbon. I was kind of feeling out, like I had a very good feel for the community. And that was like, I keep throwing around YOLO because that was exactly what it was. Like people were like, who's going to do this? We need to do more rum. And I said, okay, cool. Like I'll do it. Let's do it. If it fails, it fails. The kind of default was that we don't get cool rum anyways. We'll just buy it from other people. And if it succeeds, then we have something going. And we've just wrapped up XXX and a couple of additional high ester offerings. So it's going quite swimmingly now.
Yeah. I know we want to talk more about those, but I wanted to pick up on something you mentioned, Fine Drams as well, and your relationship with them. And that was one thing for those people who don't know and listening, that's a really great online liquor seller that does, I think, most of their business in the EU, but they do also ship to the US. So I was hoping that you could talk a little bit more about that relationship and how that part of it came together, and like, how does it function even now? Like for deciding when to do picks, do you approach them? Do they approach you? How's that whole thing come together?
Yeah, it's great. So first off, like I have, and I'll just lay this out flat. Like I have no business connection with Jonas and Fine Drams. It's a passion thing. A lot of people ask me like, hey, these got to be super profitable, right? And I'm like, no, I'm losing money like the rest of you. Like we're doing this so that I can turn around and then also buy it, right? Like I'm about to, I want 6 bottles of this or 3 bottles of that.
You're feeding your own habit.
Exactly. Like I'm basically, just pushing myself farther down the rabbit hole. But, Jonas at Fine Drams is amazing. And it's kind of a two-way street. Like every now and then he'll kind of elbow me and be like, hey dude, like I got this crazy idea. Like you want to talk about it? I'm like, okay. And then sometimes, I'm like, hey, maybe we should do this thing. And he'll think about it and he'll be like, no, we should definitely do it.
I do that to Will all the time, by the way, in the podcast. I'm like, hey, Will, we got to do this.
Yeah, which is great. Like it's incredibly like aficionado focused, and we laugh because that's like the name of our group. But it's incredibly like Jonas's entire goal is to like get the nerdy people the spirits they want. His prices are extremely fair, and shipping is some of the best in the EU. Like it's a linear price plus weight, so it's a flat fee plus whatever the box weighs, and it gets to you. But if we want to do Armagnac, like I've done Armagnac, we've done Cognac, we've done many rums at this point. We've done some scotches. He's super into it if he thinks that it's what enthusiasts are going to love. And that's something that has really worked out well.
I will say, and this episode is not sponsored by Fine Drams or anything, but I've had, as a consumer, great customer service experiences with them. I ordered, a box of several different you can order little minis from them, samples of all kinds of great rums. And I got a box of them. I think I ordered 4. Only one of them had broke. And again, this is coming all the way from Europe to me in Nashville. And I just emailed them just to let them know one of the bottles broke. And they were amazingly cool about it, offered to send me, something, whatever I wanted to replace it. It was just a great experience. So that's really cool to hear that the partnership has gone well. Yeah.
And that's one of the things that we also really value is that like, customer service is what makes and breaks something. And when I'm not fiducially invested, like I don't have money on the line, like I want people to get their packages, but also I'm not involved with the company. So it makes it really easy. Like Fine Drams, I think it's almost unheard of if your box doesn't ship within 48 hours. Like their goal is like, we get your order and we get it out. And like, sometimes it takes a while because it takes a long time to get stuff from Denmark to the United States and stuff like that. But, and if something breaks, like we're on it. And I'm thankful that people are comfortable to approach me and say, hey, I have a question about my box. Here's my order number. I pass it on to Jonas and he's like, okay, we're on it. Like boom, 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 done. And
it's awesome.
Like, especially in like the world where Amazon is king, right? Like
right, exactly right.
Consumers expect an Amazon experience from everybody. Yeah. And like it's not always possible to give them, especially with domestic producers, but Fine Drams is really like Fine Drams usually arrives before some of my domestic orders, which is always the most entertaining thing to me in the world.
Yeah.
This came from Denmark and yours came from Chicago, but Denmark arrived first. Like maybe that's a sign, guys, like speed it up. But
step up your game, man. Yeah. You mentioned earlier kind of the selection process for the XXX releases. And I followed, I kind of came on to Reddit, I think a little bit after y'all had done the first release. And so I remember seeing those whispers of like when you were kind of announcing 2, you were like being very careful about, how it was done and everything. And but I remember reading about the selection process, and you have kind of like a panel of tasters. I think I remember it all being blind, but I'd love for you to speak a little bit to what the selection process is like. And I'm also curious to know just kind of what have been the biggest surprises, either pleasant or unpleasant, that you've experienced while tasting your way to some of these selections.
Sure. Yeah, that's an excellent question. So I write software for a living, and I have a degree that's very like heavy into STEMs, like analysis and data and stuff like that. So when we were talking, like, how do we do these panels? Like my eyes kind of lit up. I was like, yo,
this is my happy place.
We're gonna blind for this. We're gonna blind everybody. Like we're even gonna blind me. Like for XXX 2 and 3. We talked a little bit about like, hey, maybe what's the direction this should go? And then he's like, you know what? I got it. Like you're going to get the same blind samples as everyone else, which was super cool to me. Like I got the reveal just ahead of everyone else. So I could like put it in the spreadsheet really quick and then tell everyone else what it was, which I'm a huge advocate of. Like anything I can do blind, like I can. Like if I could write every single review blind, it would be amazing. My fiance would kill me because she would have to do all like. But for selections,
the same way with my wife, I'm like, hey, I'm gonna go in the other room. Can you pour these for me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and like I've been preparing. I'll be a judge on an upcoming spirits competition called the Ascots, and I've been like training really hard my nose and stuff. And I'll be like, okay, like grab any bottles you want from this section of the basement and then pour them. And she's like, not this again. Like, do I have to? And I was like, it takes you 30 seconds and then I'm going to agonize for 2 hours. Just like, calm down, but
Rocky theme playing in the background.
Yeah. And then just me, like my heart palpitating, like, I'm pretty sure this is, I know this is Araqueño, if I'm working on agave that day, like this has got to be carper pod. But I was really happy that he was super into doing all this extra work, because some producers, they just want to send you the samples. They don't want to do extra work. And he and his staff were like, if you guys want to do, I think XXX 2 and 3 were smaller. They were like 10 samples for 5 people, which is no small feat. And in future rounds, he was like, hey, why don't we go crazy? Let's do 16 samples for 12 people. And I was like, already thinking like, oh my God, the data is going to be impossible to crunch for this. But like, that's the kind of willingness he brought. But yeah, it was all blind. So I wanted, we picked people who were icons of our rum, people who were willing to put themselves on the line, people who are willing to like write and talk about rum. And, I asked them first, like, hey, do you want to taste some rum for XXX 2 and 3? And everyone, of course, was like, hell yeah. But everyone knew what they were getting into. And I was like, okay, you're going to get a bunch. Like, the only thing I need from you, and you don't even have to buy these bottles after we select them. Like, you don't need to buy them if you don't want to. But all I need is for your willingness to write some tasting notes for each. And then at the end, like, pick your order. And then I will do all the rest. And that shook out really well. Like, we got some nice word clouds from everybody. We got everybody's preferences. We got to, rank choice of vote. And the thing that consistently surprises me is that we have never not had a clear winner.
Wow. Yeah, that is surprising. Especially
even as the data set gets bigger, right? Like, my biggest fear is like, oh shoot, like, we're going to have so many ties and I'm going to have to figure out how to tell the community like, well, 30% of people like this one and 30, like, there's always been a consistent 1 and 2. And then in the cases where we take like a third or fourth cask, like, there's a little bit of dissemination, but it's always overwhelmingly clear what the choice is. And I'm super grateful for that, but it's also very unexpected and it's consistently so.
And do you give Jonas like a kind of a range of things you want, kind of the vibe you're going for, or is it just him sending you a bunch of interesting stuff that he thinks you'll like
mad scientist like?
It's funny because sometimes it ends up like that way, but our really big goal is that we didn't want to do 5 4-square in a row, right?
Yeah.
So hey, we did a 4-square, maybe let's keep that out of the panel for the next one. But as long as the price is right, the MOQ, so the minimum order quantity, like, we're buying many of these in 1,000-liter totes. So there's a lot of rum moving around. But, as long as things hit the price that we're looking for, they're hitting some statistic, we're kind of open to anything. Like, we've had some agricole slip in. We've got some other crazy stuff that's about to come down the pipe. And it's really cool to just know that, hey, okay, we did, a Venezuelan and we did a Barbados, so those probably won't be in, but anything else is on the table,
right?
As long as the price is right. And I actually really enjoy being kind of removed from that process as well. Like, doing high ester, we know a little bit more what we want. Those are less blind, or I'll know, but I'll blind the panel. But when we're doing the XXX stuff, it's purely, I can promise you haven't had this before, and that's all you know. It's a cask strength, no additive rum, because that's the baseline for us. And you can probably afford it at the end. So like, LFG, let's go.
And on the high ester note, so I think it was 2019 when it was kind of like an additional direct, it wasn't labeled as part of the XXX series, but that's when the Hamden t8ke release came out, and I was interested in just what led to the idea to do that release, because again, it was separate from the XXX series. Right. Did you kind of start with the idea in mind of let's find the highest ester rum we can and release it, or was it like you knew the mark you were going for and that's how it started? What was the genesis of that?
Sure. So t8ke was fun. So we agreed early on that we wanted XXX to always be aged rum. Like, we wanted it to meet, aged rum, no additive, cask strength, like, well priced. But we actually started talking. So I run like a big Discord where we talk about all this stuff. And as we do rounds, we spin up new channels for all this stuff. And someone had jokingly said like, hey, like, why don't we get some crazy high ester unaged rum? And everyone was like, oh, but we should, and we talked a little bit, I was like, you know what, I'm interested. Like, why don't I talk to Main and Share? And we're like, I don't know if we should, like, I don't know if we can. And then we found out very shortly thereafter that not only could we, but the price was extremely attractive.
Okay.
And so we all kind of talked and we're like, this is kind of crazy, but like, not a lot of people And at that point, nobody was doing it.
Right,
Someone else beat us. They released theirs 1 week earlier, and I won't say their name because it infuriates me. Because we had just sped it up a little bit. We would have been the first bottling of DOK.
I almost led the question with, it was like, as soon as I saw your DOK release, I started kind of seeing other ones, but I wasn't sure. But definitely it was through you guys that it kind of came on my radar.
Yeah, I have to imagine that we were the first, but we're also, like, we're very agile, but we don't move the fastest. We like to do things right. We like to, like, we have a designer who designed the label from scratch after tasting it, which takes a long time. And we're super grateful. You know, his name's Franklin.
I love that the design came after he tasted it, by the way.
Yeah. We were like, hey, let's taste this. And once we do it, and he was like, oh man, like, I am going. And he was like, I'm all in on alchemy. And everyone was like, here. And then, like, that's where it went. But we would have been the first. We were super close. But I believe in my heart that, like, you know, like 6 months earlier when we were like, hey, should we do this? And everyone was like, I guess we should. You know, there's nothing that's stopping us. And the price was perfect. It was so inexpensive. And so many of us just bought like disgusting amounts of this distillate. You know, we got it 86%. We had to, of course, dilute it down to 69 and change so we could ship it across the ocean.
Yeah.
But I think it's actually better at that proof. But yeah, it was a cool exercise of, like, you know, like that scene from Master of Disguise, which is one of my favorite cult movies, you know, when he's like, you know, it's a plan so crazy, like it just might work. And people loved it. You know,
is that the Dana Carvey movie you're talking about? He said,
doodle. Yeah, the turtle cub and like Neapolitan ice cream.
Oh my goodness, that's reaching
not
way
turtly
back
enough for the turtle club. Yeah,
exactly.
Awesome.
But like, I just thought of that scene when everyone was like, yeah, let's do it. You know, and everyone signed on right away. And we tasted LROK and we tasted some HLFCH or whatever the other mark is. And, you know, we tasted a bunch of stuff and we just kept coming back like, this is the higher ester, like the highest ester we can get. And the DOK was just incredible. So there's certain rooms in my house, like I have a bunch of DOK in one corner of my basement. And if I go near there, it smells like dog.
Smells like, I love that.
But it's amazing. It's fun. And it was just so cool to see people be like, this is insane. Like, I need 6 bottles. And then they would buy it, you know, and then like a month later, they'd be like, I bought some more. And those sold way faster than we ever expected. And it was kind of cool. And it's what led us to believe, like, people are interested in this stuff, and other people in the industry will hold that, like, you should not consume this. Like, this is not meant to be consumed whatsoever. I mean, we thought it was cool. It kind of bucked a trend. And, you know, some people are like, oh, it's the same as a quadruple IPA, like whatever. But I think it's very different. Like, there's a lot of substance, and we're looking forward to aging some and seeing the, you know, the other aged DOK expressions come out.
Yeah. And I mean, even to me, like, it may not be something that everyone wants to sit back and like kick back and relax with a glass of DOK. But I think anyone who loves rum, like, just the exercise of getting to taste that by itself, not in a blend, is to me like so instructive just about the world of rum and blending and things like that. It's great. So I'm, as a consumer, I'm thrilled that people like you are kind of putting that out in the world. And I know you've also, in 2020, the Legalian and New Yarmouth releases came as well. So was that just kind of on the heels of the popularity of the DOK? You're just like, more high ester, and these are the 2 places I know we want to go? Or did you kind of like try several different high ester destinations? What led to those choices?
Yeah, so we did those choices like we would have done any other round. We basically said, you know, DOK sold way faster than we expected to, which naturally at this point we're just self-enabling ourselves to spend all our money. And so like, let's do some more. So we did, I forget. So there was the Galleon, there's the New Yarmouth, there was a Diamond, and then I forget what the 4th sample was, but we did it just like we did XXX. I said, okay guys, hey, you know, if you're interested, because I always like to invite people, hey, here's some new faces, here's some old faces. You want to drink some rum? Like, the only thing I'm going to tell you is that you're drinking rum, and all I need is your honest thoughts. And
now you're the guy in the back alley, Jay.
Yeah. I was like, my trench coat was wide open. I was just like, come and get it, boys.
Full circle.
Which is fun too, because like, you know, I won't say that like people rise and fall in rum, but like people who were like, I don't really like rum at XXX1, now we're just so deep in the rum hole that I was like, hey, come join the panel. And they're like, who, me? And I was like, yeah, like, you've been writing about rum, like you've been putting in a ton of effort, like get over here, let's drink some rum. And that like fosters the community element, because we're, you know, like our attendance isn't like, we don't have like a roster, I get to invite people and we talk like, hey, you've been writing a lot about rum. Like, you want to come drink some rum and pick the next XXX? And, so far no one has been like, I'm busy. I'm busy that day. Everyone's like, oh, who, me?
It's not something you pass on. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, it's kind of like a coveted thing at this point. Like, sometimes people like message me and be like, it's been a while since there was a XXX. Like, is there one being tasted? Like, will I know? Like, can I get an invite? I'm like, we're not trying to make it exclusive, but also at the same time, like, there's only so many samples, but it's always fun. I try and get new faces for every single time. And we did that with the Galleon and the New Yarmouth, but it was 4 blind samples. Like, hey, this is what available. This is what looks interesting. Let's taste these. We all did actually a Zoom one night, 'cause I was like, these are so crazy. Even if you guys talk about these after putting in your notes, like, you're not going to get them. And people jammed on it for a couple of weeks. And then we said, okay, these are the picks. And the most fun for me at this point is I always tell people, okay, we're going to pick one rum, right? Like, you have 10 samples. We're going to pick one rum, and people agonize. They just absolutely agonize over the difference between 1 and 2. Yeah. And a couple of times I've had the opportunity and the privilege to say, okay, cool. So those are your top 2. And everyone's like, those are my top 2. And I'm like, all right, cool. We're buying them both. Let's
do them both.
And like, people are like, yes, like, I was so concerned that like, I love 2, but 1 was just so much better, but I wanted to buy 2 too. I'm like, okay, cool. We'll buy them both. And sometimes we'll say, okay, you tasted 10 samples. We're actually buying 3 because the demand is there at this point. And it's fun to see people who are like, splitting hairs to figure out like, I want to drink both of these so bad. And be like, all right, cool. We're doing them both. Let's go. And people are like, oh my God, this is great. Yeah. So
it's kind of like when you're watching one of those like reality competition shows, like the baking show or something like that. And they're getting down to eliminating 2 people. And then they're like, we've decided we're not sending anyone home this week. You're both staying. It's like, oh, one's going home.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's like the most satisfying for me, because like, I don't know what the rum is either, but I know that, I've gotten authorization to buy 1, 2, or 3 based on when it is and what it is and stuff. But like, knowing that I'm telling people, and I always tell them like, okay, we're picking 1 rum, like, let's go. And sometimes we do just pick 1, but sometimes I know that secretly we're going to buy 2 or we're going to buy 3, and people, it's always good. Everyone just loses their mind.
You sound like a real showman with all of this. I love that you have kind of like reveals, twists and turns and things like that.
There's a top hat.
I love just like how forcibly honest people have to be when they're blind. People are like,
agree.
Some people are like, I know exactly what this is, and they're willing to like stake it. And some people, because it's interesting too, like there's always a little perceived bit of ego with tasting and writing reviews and stuff, because you're like, oh, my palate knows this. And like, and I'm the first to admit, like, I'm the worst. Like, I've only gotten like 2% of my blind stuff right. So like, do not come for me for blind stuff. But like, it forces people to be vulnerable. And if they're willing to do it, we're going to pick the best rum, no doubt. Yeah. And everyone has always just like thrown themselves into it, head, heart, and tails, and is just ready to go hard. And it so far it hasn't failed us. We've gotten some great rum.
Yeah, I like the fact that you ended up from blind tasting selecting Le Galleon and New Yarmouth. I feel like those picks seemed intentional to me, because I feel like both of those distilleries kind of have some mystique and some like people don't know a lot about them. So it's really cool to hear that it was like those just happened to be the ones that you liked the best. It didn't have anything to do with trying to choose a mysterious destination or anything like that.
Exactly. And that's something I've learned a lot from my time in the bourbon community, right? Because people will go to a distillery, and like distilleries in bourbon have very routine profiles. And sometimes people go and they're like, I just want to pick the weirdest, most off profile, whatever. And I'm like, but is that the best choice? And like, no, but this is what'll sell. It's off profile. I can say, like, and blinding people removes that element. Just like pick the best rum. We'll figure out where it's from later. But if you said it's the best, and 10 out of 12 of you said it's the best, it doesn't matter where it's from.
Stop the mind games. Yeah.
We got the best rum, and that's all we're here to do. And now we drank the best rum and stuff. And we had an agricole XXX snuck in, and everyone hated it the first time they drank it.
This is the Mauritius rum, right?
Yeah. And then we came back 4 weeks later. Everyone had saved a little bit, and 4 weeks later, people are like, this is not the same. Like, I love this. And we're like, so let's buy it. If you didn't like it before and it's opened up beautifully, this is why we're doing it. Like, you wouldn't have liked it before. You still don't know what it is, but it's opened up beautifully. You want to buy it now. It's like, let's buy it.
Yeah. So Jay, you've dropped a few hints so far, but I was hoping we could maybe find out a little bit more about what's next from Aficionados. Is there a XXX7? Is there a XXX 7 and 8 in the works? Anything you can tell us about what's coming up?
Sure. So I can't tell you exactly what it is. And I don't know quite when this will air, so this will be as much a surprise to myself as to the rest of you. But I can tell you it's going to be old. It's not going to be a XXX. It's going to be kind of adjacent, much like the high ester, but instead of being RFE, really fucking high ester, it's going to be really old. So, and I'm excited for people. Like, I know what it is. The tasters know what it was. We have some stuff up our sleeve, but it's going to be old, and you're going to be able to afford it, which is surprising.
Excellent. You don't hear those two things together very often.
Yeah, like old and affordable, like rarely cross paths. But it's really old, it's really affordable, and I can't wait for people to try it.
Awesome.
Yeah, we'll definitely have our eyes open for that. So I want to shift a little bit to the review and tasting side of things. I mentioned in the beginning over 1,900 reviews since 2015. That's a lot. I think I'm not the first to describe you as being prolific when it comes to tasting and reviewing. And given the engineering background you talked about, it sounds like you're very process driven. So you talked a little bit about the schedule you have on a weekly basis, but can you walk us through what an average week looks like and how much planning is involved? Not just from a scheduling standpoint, but from do you focus on certain types of spirits on different days, and just what does your system look like?
Sure. So I'll be the first to admit, I have an engineering background. I also write software, and those two things have been my biggest asset in all of this. I believe that the future of mankind, for us living more comfortably, us living more efficiently, is through automation. And so I employ that to a great deal myself. And I do what's known as circular tasting. So obviously the human body can only do so much, and I'm very aware of that. I want to be healthy. I want to be around for a very long time. My goal is to, I'm young, I'm only 28, which I think is kind of cool too, now that people know who I am and how old I am and stuff. But, I'm going to outlive a lot of people that are currently, other icons in the spirits industry. So I want to be healthy and be useful when I'm old. So no reason going crazy. So I do circular tasting. So I taste a couple of things every single day, but I don't write a review on a single tasting alone. Okay. I like to taste hey, maybe this is the first thing I'm tasting today. Maybe it's in the middle tomorrow. Maybe it's the very last thing I taste. And I take notes. That's all recorded in a database. I grab the different sessions. I blend the notes together. I kind of, I try and keep things that I consider pollutants. So super Isla, super funky, some crazy raicias, agave, because I try and taste as much stuff as I can. I kind of ignore vodka because it's boring, but I have written about vodka in the past.
Okay.
I think vodka is great for a lot of people. I don't think it's the most interesting spirit, but I think that a lot of craft producers are creating really great vodka. But I only have so many dollars, so I don't run out and buy tons of vodka, especially since I don't really sit around and just be I have vodka. That's probably the only thing I'll
probably make a sacrifice somewhere.
Yeah. So, I love gin, but my big goal is that I want to give people not only the value of, hey, I've tasted over several days, but things like your mood and your cuisine and even how your sinuses are doing really affect those things. So if I can take 3 samplings through different nights, those all go in a database. Those all get blended into tasting notes. And really, I just go where I'm feeling. I'm thankful that, I work for Whiskey Raiders now, which is a thing. I'm a managing editor. I'm the critic there under Dan Abrams. Clearly, it's my job to write a lot about whiskey. But I'm thankful to have the flexibility that today's Wednesday. I don't really feel like drinking whiskey, so I'm not gonna. I'll drink something else. I'll drink rum, or I'll drink agave, or some days I wake up and I'm my palate is shot. My allergies are terrible. I'm sneezing all day. I'm just gonna have some tea and go to bed. So
do you ever I get that, but do you ever also suffer from palate fatigue just generally? Does that happen to you? And if so, how do you deal with that then? Do you just step away for a day, or is it a week, or?
I notice it's usually a day. If I get palate fatigue, especially some weekends, I'm tasting a lot of spirits, especially I'm trying to work out and kind of prep for some other tasting stuff coming up. But, the moment where I'm I'm not getting anything out of this. I'm not tasting it. I'll try something different. I'm not getting anything out of this. I have other work to do. I just get up, I wash my glasses and go do something else. The palate, I won't say it's mysterious, but there's nothing I can do that's going to magically jolt my palate back into being awesome. So I may as well just go be productive in some other way, and I'll come back and taste tomorrow. And I think a lot of people assume that I taste a lot of this stuff because I have to. And my biggest my biggest motivation is that like I still taste because I want to. Like it's still a huge passion of mine. And some days like you just don't feel like doing your biggest hobby. So go do something else. Like there's cleaning to be done. There's organization. You know, I maybe need to clean up some notes and get some posts ready. But
board games, basketball, it's all type of things out there.
Yeah, go play with my dog, like throw around in the backyard, like stuff like that. But you know, the day that all of this stuff begins to feel like curmudgeonous work is the day that any passion goes out the window. And that's the last thing I want. So if I'm not feeling it, I'll go have a Diet Coke and do some yard work. And if it's back later, cool. And if not, tomorrow or next week. But I try and taste enough things that even if I need to take a week off, or like I like to take vacations like normal people, there's enough stuff in the hopper to keep the masses interested.
I've heard vodka is a good palate cleanser.
Makes a great Bloody Mary, but that's because you can't taste it. And I'll admit, like craft vodka is amazing. Like I like Great Lakes Distillery here in Milwaukee, their Rayhorse vodka is lovely, but it still isn't going to have half as much character as literally any rum that exists.
Definitely,
and that's just the truth with vodka.
Yep.
So your scoring scale on your reviews has been adopted in so many places to the point that it actually took me some time to realize that you popularized that format. Can you explain the philosophy behind the scoring scale and what you like about it relative to other ones that are out there?
Sure, yeah. So it is fun. I pivoted it to myself, I think in like 2016 or 2015. And I never expected anyone to pick up on it, which is cool. You know, I was like, well, I'm doing this for me. But the one thing that enraged me is that coming from a math background, I realized, and I wrote my first like 115-ish reviews using the American, I don't know, Robert Parker 0 to 100 scale. Mm-hmm. But what annoyed me is that you had 100 points of resolution, and by default, you were expected to use, I don't know, 25 of them. Right. So and maybe, I mean, everyone that uses the 100 point, like you get a random guy that's like, 42, you know. Right. But what irked me about the scale was that you were only expected to use a quarter of it. Yeah. And any given day, I could not discern the difference between an 85 and an 86. Mm-hmm. Like if someone asked me, hey, I see you gave Springbank 12, and I can't remember off the top of my head, but like, hey, you gave Springbank 12 and 87, but you gave Macallan 12 and difference?
What the hell?
Yeah. Or like
those are scotches, by the way.
I know that they're scotches. Yeah. I may be mostly into rum, but I have some awareness.
Yeah, and it was Aberlour 12 non-chill filtered was the review where I sat down and I was like, this is not working. And I knew that, okay, I've done 115 of these, so I'm not going to stop anytime soon. And like efficiency is something I concerned myself with. And I was like, okay, so eventually you're going to overhaul and change all this. So why don't you sit down and figure it out now? And I had a whiteboard in my apartment and I sat down for a while and kind of thought about things. But I realized that I can't tell the difference between an 85 and an 86. Maybe someone out there can, but there's enough variation in palate and mood that I wanted to break things and glump them together. And I wanted there to be a scale that had a clear midpoint. Like there's no sense in having 100 points or 50 points or 20 points in resolution if the very first thing you admit to is that you intend to not use a vast majority of them. So I figured I would tinker around. I would do 1 to 10. Mm-hmm. And if I needed to, I'd fix it later. You know, I still going through and refactoring 100 things takes a couple of hours. Now refactoring 2,000 things takes a week, and I don't do that. But I ended up kind of postulating on and thinking about it, and people were open to it, and I used it for a while and I really liked it. And then people would be like, hey, you know what? Is it like, people kept asking me like, hey, is it cool if I use yours? And I was like, well, it's public domain. Like I put it out there, like anyone that wants it, use it. So just
open source.
Yeah. Like, and that's like, I'm writing open source software. Yeah. Also like just use my open source rating scale. So, and people really liked it. They were like, this breaks it down, because a lot of people I found out were really getting stressed. Like, I'm rating everything in 86. I don't understand it. They'd be like, how do I know the difference between a 97 and a 98? Or even worse, there's reviewers out there, and I won't name them by name, but it's one of my biggest pet peeves. And they're like, nothing can be better than a 94. I'm like, then like your scale is a 94.
Right,
exactly.
94. Like,
exactly. That's like a teacher that says, I never give students A's.
I had one of those in college. Sorry.
So I assume then, based on that, you've given a perfect 10 score.
Yeah, I have. I gave one in 2017. It was a Scotch whiskey, Scotch Malt Whiskey Society 26.105, which is a 28-year clonalish named Bumblebees by the Sea. And then earlier this year, Hermogenes made a really great Tepestade, which is a uncertified mezcal that was bottled by Miguel Malati. And it was perfect. It was amazing. It was 10 out of 10.
Have you ever given a perfect 10 to a rum then? I think
I haven't.
No.
But I know it's out there.
But it's out there. That's right.
Maybe keep going until you find it. Do you know, in the cases of those two 10s, was it an immediate, this is a 10? Or
Epiphany?
does it hit you all at once, or did you have to think about it for a little bit?
So the first time I drank it, I was like, you know what? This is insane. I love everything about this. And I was like, this has got to be. And I was like, you know what? We'll come back another day. Maybe today I'm just feeling especially amazing. Like maybe I just slept great last night. Like maybe nothing can go wrong today.
Yeah.
And I didn't even get to the third tasting for both of those. The second time I drank it, and the first time too for the Bumblebees by the Sea, I had a bunch of buddies over. We were drinking Brora, we were drinking Rosebank, we were drinking St. Magdalene, which are other just like kind of grail scotches. And I was like, you know what? This one is amazing. I love everything about this, but I'm 5 or 6 drinks deep. I'm coming back to it.
Yeah.
And I came back to it and I was like, this is incredible. And I was like, I know it. This is a 10. And the fun part too is that other people have rated it and they're like, you know what? It's an 8. And I'm like, that's fine. Like, that's you. Like, that is your palate and it's cool.
Yeah.
But if you plopped one of these down in front of me, this is a 10 all the time. And Hermogenes Tepestade was exactly the same way. At the second tasting, I was like, this is not going to get better. This is fantastic.
So Jay, on your Whiskey Rater site, which you mentioned a little bit earlier, I took a look there and I was looking at some of the bio stuff there, and something stuck out to me that I found was very interesting and was hoping you could expand upon a little bit. There's a part there that says you're trying to help others to, quote, think more critically about spirits and learn the complexities of analytical drinking, end quote.
Sure.
So can you tell us what is analytical drinking and what that approach does for you and would do for rum drinkers?
Yeah, totally. So the biggest thing that people always approach me is they say, hey, I wish I was as talented as you are. I've been drinking for a couple of weeks or a month or maybe a year, and I just don't get any notes at all. Like, I don't get it. It's ethanol and it gets me drunk, and like, I don't get it. And I'm like, well, what have you done? Like, have you tried to think about this stuff at all? And they're like, no, I haven't. I just drink every now and then and it doesn't come to me. And I'm like, I totally get it. Like, this isn't natural.
Right.
Like, there's no class in high school that's like drinking spirits, you know? But at the same time, like, you know, you don't just wake up one day and want to run a 5K. I mean, at least I don't. Like, I'm out of shape, but like maybe some people get up and just run a 5K, or
I've never had the urge.
Yeah, or are incredibly good marksmen. Like, those things take work, and it's very unconventional for you to wake up one day and be like, hey, I want to develop my palate, but that requires an equal amount of work. And all those things are based around kind of memory connection and like neuron connection. But if you don't know what something smells like, how are you ever going to equate it to something that you're drinking? And a lot of people are like, you know, how can you get nutmeg and cinnamon, and how can you get notes like coriander? And like, and I asked them, like, do you know what coriander smells like? And they're like, no, I have no idea. And I'm like, well, then of course you're not going to get it, which isn't like a judgment, but like, you need to go and smell those things, like make memories associated with them. Go to, you know, pre-COVID, like go to the spice aisle, go to Whole Foods and smell everything in Whole Foods. And it might feel kind of dumb, but you're going to pick up, hey, I smell apple pie. That's cinnamon. That's nutmeg. That's buttery pastry. That's obviously apple. There's a little bit of caramel. And those notes just come to you. And that's what I encourage people to do. Is I'm not some crazy, talented, special, crazy gift by God taster. It's just like, I know what things smell like, and I'm very good at putting those to words. And I think once people learn that for themselves, the entire world of spirits is their gateway. And there's I still write down like smell I can't recognize, and I go and try and think about it. Like, there's some mezcal until I was like, oh, that actually smells like ammonia. I was doing some cleaning. I was like this, and it's like hard to be like, it's enticing and it smells like ammonia, but like that smell is there. And then once you make that connection, you'll never forget it. And that's, to me, is the heart of analytical drinking. And we get that with rum too. Like, people are like, Hampton smells funny. Like, it just smells funny. I don't know what it smells like. I'm like, go smell some bananas, go smell some brown sugar, go smell gasoline a little bit. And people are like, oh, it does smell like rotting fruits. It smells like pepper and sulfur and tobacco. And then they immediately get it. And I think that's the coolest thing.
So it's almost like learning a language, right? In a way. In a different way. I mean, the language is there, but it's learning how to express that language and building the connections, like you said.
And there's an aspect too, and I love to draw on it, because the spirits world is so dominated by men. But every woman I've met has an exceptional palate compared to the male counterpart. And that's, you know, and I won't, like, you know, it's not like, oh, women belong in the kitchen, but like, women have historically spent a lot of time in the kitchen, and that's where you experience tons of smells, and they don't know it. But I can hold something up to my fiance and be like, smell this, and she's like, huh, raspberries and pepper. And I'm like, thank you, you know. And she's like just so in tune, and you know, they're known to have better olfactory, but also just more experience smelling different strange things. And whether you know it or not, your brain is making those connections. And when you're smelling spirits and tasting them, your brain is looking for those connections so you can explain things.
Yeah, it's funny. I constantly wish I was better at being able to articulate what I'm tasting in spirits. And I've started to try to get more intentional about smelling things. And last night, my wife and I were making a pizza, and she had some jalapenos cut up over here and some red onions cut up over here. And I was just kind of like putting my face down to each ingredient, smelling it. She's like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I'm just smelling these onions." Like,
yeah,
why wouldn't I?
It's fun to me. Like, I love being in a place and being like, and my fiance laughs because we used to live in an apartment and someone had just brought a pizza up the elevator, and I sat in the elevator and I was like, I'm pretty sure that was like a sausage and pepperoni pizza. And she's like, would you stop sniffing? And I was like, but I'm interested. Like, this is cool to me. And now, I don't know if I'm right. Like, the person with the pizza obviously still isn't here, but I'm curious to give it a whiff. Yeah.
I see you in the elevator doing like licking your finger. That's pizza. It's going to be 10-inch. It's going to have mozzarella mixed with triple cheese.
And this is a thick crust if I've ever smelled one. Yeah.
So you pointed out a few different things just then, things people can do to get better. Anything else that you can think of just in your own kind of journey, specific meaningful actions you've done that have been really helpful at improving tasting, articulating your impressions of a spirit other than what you've already mentioned?
Yeah, I mean, so smell is the biggest component, obviously. If you're never be afraid to write down I don't know, because that's my biggest kind of pull. There is a note that I don't get here. I'm just breaking down. I'm smelling Hampton. There's some nice oak here. There's pepper. There's toffee. There's that funky fruit. And just be there's also something I don't know. And that reminds you the next time you come back, think about it. Are you getting something different? Are you maybe not getting something you got before? Are you getting something extra? And that's not to say it'll immediately trigger your brain, but especially I drink a lot of spirits and sometimes I forget what I don't know. Notes come and go, but if you're hey, there was something here that I just couldn't figure out the last time. And it might encourage you, I think I'm close. Maybe it's basil, maybe it's rosemary, run upstairs, go smell some basil rosemary, see if it checks out, passes the sniff test. But I think people are generally just afraid to admit that, I don't know. And there's times I've written review and said hey, it's something funky. I can't quite figure it out. And I've been trying for a long time. And every now and then someone will pop in the comments and be hey, I got this note. Maybe that's that. And I'm oh, tomatoes, or, oh, papaya. That's totally it. Why didn't it come to me? And that's kind of the fun community aspect. But other than that, just drink lots of stuff. Maybe don't drink a lot of it, but there's no shame in pouring 5 glasses of tiny pours and comparing, contrasting, or it's fun to travel.
Frequency and volume aren't the same thing.
Right. Exactly. We all got bodies. Take care of them, please, especially in the terms of COVID. But it's also fun. Back when I used to travel a lot, I'd be someplace and be I have no idea what this is on the menu. I'm gonna just order it. Let's see what's up, And maybe it's a spirit, it's an Amaro or a liqueur or something you don't recognize. And if you like it, that's great. And if you don't, you tried something new and you didn't have to buy a whole bottle of it to realize that you hate Chambord or something. But people are afraid to admit that they don't know stuff and they're afraid to try something new. So get out there. And I get it. Spirits are expensive. We all have budgets, but if you can get a pour of some, you have no idea what it's going to be like at a bar. You might just like it. And if not, send it back and get a beer, whatever, beer's cheap.
So we talked a little bit about some of the best rums and drinks that you've ever had and reviewed. One thing I often struggle with, however, is to give feedback on a rum or a spirit that I don't really care for much.
Sure.
And I guess I'm fine at saying it's bad. This is bad. But I don't always know how to point out what I think needs to be adjusted or changed to do something to improve it. I imagine with all the reviews you've done, you've encountered some that you don't care for as much. And what's been your strategy for that? And do you offer how to improve it or think about it differently? And I'll add to that before you answer, especially when you're in front of somebody, in person. Wow, that's a tough one. And how do you navigate that?
Yeah, so I think there's 2 very clear things. There's no shame. And oftentimes people want to know what you dislike more than they want to know what you like, especially brand producers. And that feels kind of counterintuitive because you assume that a brand producer is giving you something that they think is the best ever. And it's very brand producers are, naturally passionate. They're also paid to be passionate about a product.
Yeah.
But I feel offering constructive criticism is the best. And everyone says be constructive, but saying, hey, this is bad doesn't help anybody because you're not explaining, maybe I think it's bad and you might think it's amazing. And we'll take something that I think is a pretty safe bet here, but I feel particularly strong about, like stolen smoked rum. I think we can.
I'm laughing
agree.
because I just came across. I was going back through some of your old reviews, and that was the lowest one I found. And I was like, that rum. I think every review I've ever read has been universally on the low side of things. Yeah.
Yeah. So, that's easy, right? So we have a common experience there. So if I was talking to them like, hey, it's easy to say, you know what, this rum is bad. And I think nobody would second guess that. No one would say, are you sure? But a more useful way to communicate is say, hey, I think this rum is bad, but I also think that there's ways that this rum could be improved. And I think this rum is bad because maybe, the smoked element is too strong. And for my palate, it's aggressive. It's covering up the notes that I would have hoped to find. This rum could be greatly improved probably by a boost in ABV because it tasted thin and smoky like an ashtray. And let's dial back those smoke. Like I think that the base rum might not be too bad here, but it's being completely covered up by notes that I don't particularly enjoy. So let's dial back the ashtray. Maybe we'll boost the mouthfeel. We'll give it a proof. Like it's priced okay. Like that's a great place to be. Like that's probably the best thing that you can say about stolen smoked rum is that it's priced pretty well. Unfortunately, no one wants to spend that very reasonably priced bottle because it's loud, it's obnoxious, it's very clearly meant to be a mixer. But no producer, like any producer is going to love it. You say, hey, I think this is okay. Like, it's not for me. Here's the reasons that I think are like that. And I've had great luck telling some producers, other than the Yabos that make Terrapure, which is a whiskey that's like put in a reactor to like speed up aging and get like 16 years of aging in 6 days. Like that will never work. And I'm completely happy to tell them that whatever they're doing, they should stop and go like find another industry or like get a hobby or settle down and like go to finance or something. But like, that's not common. Like nothing is usually so bad it can't be salvaged. And even some rums that I don't typically enjoy as much. Like, and I'll give a hot take here. Like, I think Foursquare is fine. I think Foursquare is really safe. It's extremely bourbony. That's why people love it.
It is bourbony, yeah.
And coming from a bourbon background, like I love when people are like, "Hey, I'm from bourbon," and I'm like, "Cool," and they're like, "I'm getting into rum," and I'm like, "Yes," and they're like, "I found Foursquare, and I'm never going farther," and I'm like, "No," it's a roller coaster, and I'm like, "But you were so close." Like Foursquare is great, but Foursquare is very similar. And it's great because it's similar. Like when you buy Foursquare, you know exactly what you're getting. But in my opinion,
I was just going to say, that's one of the things, it's easy, I think, to see the new ECS release coming out from Foursquare and be like, oh, I got to have it. Mm-hmm. But I think one of the things that I appreciate about it is I don't feel like I have to get every single one, because I'm not saying they taste exactly the same, but there is that consistency of profile. And that's fine to me. I love that I know what I'm going to get with each one, and there are going to be some differences, but there's probably going to be something I like in there. But yeah, I kind of interrupted, so please.
Oh, no, you're cool.
I only get the ones I can pronounce.
You have a syllable limit? Under right. 4 syllables, you'll get that one.
Only so many vowels. Yeah, but I mean, that's a really great point too. And some of what fascinates me most about spirits, right? Like Foursquare is that 10% rum, like that 10% product. We're like, okay, it's cool. I always know about what it's going to taste like. I can probably formulate in my mind what I think it's going to taste like. And I think it's going to taste cool. I'll spend the 100. Now it's 120, whatever bucks. But the things I love about other rums, and especially mezcal and agaves, is I can know what's going in them, and I know the background of who produced them, where they're produced, their production method, and I still have no idea what they're going to taste like. And that is what intrigues me so much more. And that's like the passion I try and give people for rum. Like, and they're like, oh, I love buying Foursquare because I know exactly what it's going to taste like. And I'm like, cool. Okay, so you're getting the 10% of rum. Like, let's go for the next 90%. Especially, MOBA is great, or like some of the Nissan and the Nissan,
or the Clarins.
Or the Clarins, like
that. Yeah.
I should have an idea of what this is going to taste like, but that it's not going to mirror reality, and I got to taste it for myself. So I go out and buy it. That's kind of it's hard to criticize Foursquare. What they do incredibly well, but it's similar. It's consistent almost to a fault. And I like to tell people, like, I just wish Foursquare was more interesting, like Clarine over here, which is always super interesting. And that's kind of where criticism's easy to give in a very opaque way that doesn't help anybody, because people are very good at saying, I hate this, or it's bad. Yeah. It's very hard to say. Even I think stolen smoked rum could be salvaged. Like there's a lot of work that needs to be done there. But if you communicate it clearly, like, hey, let's dial back that smoke. Like let's bump up that proof. Let's maybe not filter it. I think you could have a great product there. But right now that product is not where it needs to be. And as a result, it's bad. And that's kind of my approach there to bring it back to your question.
Also, in full credit to Stolen for Stolen Overproof, which I think is fantastic.
It is.
Yeah.
Hampton rum, but yeah.
6 year. Oh, I love it. I mean, great. And it's so funny because, on one side of my mouth, I'm like, Stolen smoked rum sucks. And on the other side of my mouth, I'm like, but I'll take 6 more of the Overproof, please.
Yeah.
And that's exactly how it is. Like, I am not a brand, like I consider myself very brand agnostic. Like one brand can do, apart from like humanitarian philanthropic things. Like if you're terrible to people, I'm probably going to write your products off. But if you make one product I don't love and you make even one or more products that I do love, I'm not going to fault you for the bad guy. I'm just not going to buy it. Looking at your plantation, like, I'll buy the stuff I like unless you're terrible to people, and then I'll buy none of it. But that's kind of off topic there. Like, I've always got Stolen Overproof. I'll never not buy it when I see it for $17 here in Wisconsin. It's
cool. And just to return to what you're talking about, the variety in rum, I think John and I talk about that on the show all the time, just because that's like one of the things that hooked us from the beginning and kept us coming back was just the wildly different experiences you can have from one region to the other. And that's another thing that I appreciate about the XXX series. We didn't mention, where we mentioned a few of them, but you guys have done Foursquare, Venezuela, Dominican Republic, Fiji, Mauritius, Jamaica, so all over the rum world, and there's still like so many other places and styles you could go to next. So
it's exciting.
That's one of the great things about it, and I mean spirits in general. Rum isn't the only spirit with diversity, but it certainly has a really large amount of it.
Yeah, I mean rum and agave are two of the most just complex. Wild, crazy. Like, I love whiskey. I will always have a background in whiskey, and I will be the first to admit that whiskey, there's variety, especially in Scotland. There's variety in America. It's very tight. But once you break outside of whiskey, it's just incredible. And it's so fascinating to me how much diversity there is, both in production method and prices. But you can just get you can get rum that meets any flavor profile, and you can do the same with agave, and they won't taste remotely similar. But I've never been like, hey, I'm going to drink agave tonight, and not been able to find something that fit my mood. Like some nights I'm like, I don't want to drink whiskey. I've never been like, I want to drink agave, but I can't think of one that interests me. Or I've never been like, tonight's a rum night, and I couldn't find one that like fit the profile I wanted. And that's so cool to me.
Yeah.
I agree completely. I love it for that reason. As a former bourbon guy as well, and I say former bourbon guy, I still drink bourbon every now and then, but like you said, you go back to it. I think there's kind of a place for both. There's sometimes you want a consistency. I don't mean in spirit categories. I meant more like you had mentioned consistency versus range. And sometimes the consistency is nice, like for instance, a Foursquare, and then other times you really do want to be adventurous and you really do want to find that new interesting thing. So I love that rum accommodates both of those.
Exactly. And at every price range too. Like, it's not like if you want interesting rum, like saddle up and drop $300 on a bottle. Like, there's interesting rum for $50.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, go get a bottle of Ray and Nephew Overproof,
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep. So Jay, obviously you've been very successful with your reviews, and I know that there are so many other review sites and so many people doing it in platforms out there. If there's someone out there who wants to start their own site or review blog, whether it's just for fun or because they feel they have a unique perspective or that it has value somehow that they want to bring or whatever, what would be maybe your biggest 2 or 3 points of advice that you would give somebody that's just starting out like that?
Sure. So I'll give you 2 process and 1 technical. Okay. My technical is do not use Squarespace. Learn how to use WordPress. Save yourself money, time, frustration.
I'm hiding right now because our Rumcast website is on Squarespace.
No, it's okay. Like Squarespace is amazing at making beautiful websites. If you want to like write your own reviews and like make them display in very intricate and fun and like performant ways, like my wedding website's on Squarespace, so I'm totally the same way. It is beautiful, it's functional, it's easy.
Right.
But if you want to write a review site, do it on WordPress. You'll thank yourself later. Just because, if you're going to hack your own reviews, you may as well hack apart your own website. Learn some new skill at the same time. I think WordPress is great for that. I know that's outside the vein of where you're going, so I'll give you 2 useful tips on top of it. Never be afraid to go back and revise a review. Never, just whether you want to taste something 1 time or 10 times, the only thing I can say without fault is that you will learn more about your palate every single time you taste something. And if you write 100 reviews and go back and taste that review number 1 and are like, holy cow, this is totally different, then go ahead and revise it. Be like, hey, I tasted this again. I got some different notes. I added it. First and foremost, if you're doing this for other people, at first you're doing it for you. Unless you have some really great traffic strategy I don't know about, unless you're making $1 million a day on hits that I haven't figured out myself. I think that if you're going to write reviews, sure, you're doing it for other people, but the first person that's going to benefit is you. So you may as well give yourself the benefit of the doubt. And on top of that, like, split bottles with your friends. It's incredibly expensive to review 2,000 spirits. I will not lie and say that I've bought 2,000 bottles, because I haven't. It's super fun to get 10 of my buddies and say, hey, let's split this bottle. Let's all get 2 ounces. We all are better for the experience. It was easier during COVID. And never be afraid. If someone gives you criticism, I think it's really important. Years ago, I wish I was more mature. It was easy for people to criticize me, and I would immediately be like, take whatever they wrote and think about it for like 5 or 6 minutes and think about the pro of what they said and the con. And sometimes you won't find a pro. Like, there are nasty people on the internet. But if you spend 5 minutes thinking about it, you at least know afterwards, like, hey, I thought about this pretty closely. And yeah, that person's a humongous piece of shit. But usually people on the internet, and especially maybe it's just like a Reddit thing, are good at trying to make a point, but they're very bad at making it. So if you can kind of dig through what they're saying, like, there's usually something of substance, even if it's, hey, I tried this, I thought very differently. And then they're like, I thought your review was garbage. Like, internally, like, people always disagree with you. So get rid of the offensive part, but think, hey, if they're like, I thought this was a banana bomb, that's a really great reference point for you to go back and taste it. And if you disagree, totally cool. Like, maybe there isn't banana at all. But if you go back and like, you know what, maybe that's that thing I wrote down that I couldn't figure out. It's totally banana. Then you have a great way to make rapport with someone and say, hey, you know what, I tasted it again. That was totally banana. And now you've kind of helped each other. So, not everyone writes reviews for like a community aspect, but since I'm so kind of like steeped in it, like, if people are going to give you their feedback, which you are inviting by posting your review online, right, you may as well make the best of it. And 30% of it's garbage anyways, and you're just going to delete it. But no one's life is too busy that you can't spend 5 minutes and think about a thought that someone took the time to write down. And your review process is probably going to be better for it.
I also just think one of the biggest favors you can do for yourself and like your own mental health in the online world is not respond right away to anything that's negative or someone just being a total asshole. Like, even if they deserve whatever the first thought is that comes in your head, it almost like is always just more beneficial to at least just wait like 5 minutes, like, come back to it and see how you feel then.
And like my personal policy, because like I get a lot of emails, I get a lot of comments. My personal policy is to respond immediately to like an informational request. So like, hey, so-and-so here, just a quick question. This bourbon barrel, is it going to be for sale today? And if I know the answer right away, no, or yes, or maybe tomorrow, but if someone is expressing an opinion, like, okay, you took the time to formulate that opinion. Let me think about it for a minute. Like, you don't need to just like sit down at your table and be like, and think. Like, if I'm grilling, like, I'll just think about like, okay, what they said this, is there merit there? Have I heard this before? And, if especially if like 30 people tell you the same thing, like, okay, like maybe I should like think a little harder. But yeah, respond right away to informational stuff and take 5 minutes to think about opinions, unless, I assume you guys aren't like strangers, like strong language, but some guys just like, fuck you, then just move on from that. Like, nothing of value is happening there. Just that guy's having a terrible day and he spoiled his own fun. But typically people comment because they feel like they need to be heard. And if you feel like you listened and respond in kind, you'll probably learn something. And if not, then the person feels heard. Maybe you've turned around their day. And that's just, I think, internet 101. But those are my 3 tips for starting your own review site.
I like them. Very good. So one of the things we talk about a lot is which rums to recommend to people who like other kinds of spirits. But given your experience tasting across so many different categories, I always really enjoy, like, 90% of the time I'm drinking rum, but I do enjoy drinking other spirits categories because I find it instructive to my enjoyment of rum. And it's just interesting, to taste something new and different. So I'd love, if you're up for it, to try spinning that around and seeing what other spirits you might recommend people who like particular styles of rum. So if someone likes a certain kind of rum but wants to venture into other spirits categories, I'm curious if you could maybe recommend either a spirit category or maybe a specific brand or something like that. And I know this can be tough to do, and I'm kind of putting you on the spot. So if you're not up for it, it's totally fine. But if you are, I think it could be cool.
No, I love this. I think this is super cool. So,
Okay.
I will say that if you like things like chlorine, those really, I won't say like they're not dirty, but they taste dirty. Like they're
We were
very
just
flavorful.
talking about this on our
Yeah.
last episode because I sent a sample of Hampton 46 to someone who is not a rum drinker. And I was talking about how we're both big basketball fans, and he had just shown his wife this clip of this rookie for the Minnesota Timberwolves just throwing down this like nasty dunk on another player. And she said, that rum, it's a filthy Anthony Edwards dunk. And I was like, filthy not in the bad sense, but you know, it's like a good, it's not like meant to talk down. These are still amazing products, but that's funny, we just talked about that.
Yeah, and some of my favorite like positive adjectives are like, wow, this tastes filthy, like give me more.
Exactly. Yeah
You know, so I would say so. Yeah, so and maybe this is getting too fun, but if you really like chlorine, you know, any of those crazy, you know, Haitian funky rums, you should definitely check out Raicilla. Raicilla is a sister of agave made in Mexico. Okay. It has those really phenolic vinegar olive notes like blue cheese olive martini that I love in some of the chlorine. If you, I know we just kind of came out of this. If you really like things like Foursquare, maybe a Guyana rum, bourbon and rye are going to be perfect for you. If you enjoy maybe Cuban rum a little bit more, maybe some of those like West Indies or like Dominican, like Scotch, I think is going to open up. Like those have those nice bready notes, a little bit of pepper without being that big brown sugar note that bourbon tends to have. Hampton's kind of tough. So like unaged Hampton, I think goes really great with mezcal. Like you're getting that earthy terroir.
I love mezcal.
You're getting like those funky ammonia. You're getting those rotting fruits in like a positive way, kind of like you know. And then there's Mexican rum which is very similar, but like some of those cane rums. And then
Paranubes.
Yeah, Paranubes is great. Aged Hampton is kind of tough because it's like funky, but it has like that really strong oak structure, and I won't say that it's quite like an extra añejo tequila, but I can see the resemblance. Like some of those tequilas have like a funky ammonia note, they have a funky tomato note, they have a funky woody kind of banana. Like Hampton is just so over the top banana that's probably the toughest corollary to draw. But you know, if you really like well-aged Hampton, if you loved Great House, like go try an extra añejo tequila. And I'm trying to think. I was really trying to dig deep and find like a parallel to gin because I'm passionate about gin. And I don't know if I could do it. Maybe the closest I could get was our like Le Gallion, which was like kind of like beef bouillon and herbaceous juniper. And even I'll admit that's a stretch. And I love the Le Gallion. Like it's not my job because I don't make any money to like push it, but I want people to try it. And that's probably the hardest for me. Like, oh yeah, totally gin. Just make a martini with it, because I would never make a Le Gallion martini ever in a million years. And maybe, I don't know, the Ray Nephew Overproof. That could get close, but those are
I feel like there's that herbaceousness and you know, the unaged cane juice rums and things like that. I see sometimes, you know, people recommending gin lovers try, you know, rum agricole and stuff, and I don't know that there's always a direct one-to-one correlation on that, but yeah, that's a tough like cross category recommendation, I feel like.
Yeah, agricole's so tough because it's so much like a diesel fire and like just like grass and tea, which I like love, but I can never find a way to be like, so you like A, now try agricole. I'm just like, hey, this is going to be weird and you're going to like it or you're not. It's like down the hatch it goes. And, you know, people are like, either they love it or they hate it. I haven't I can sell most styles of rum. Like, oh, you like this? Well, you're going to love that. And agricole, I'm just like, well, here it is. You know?
Yeah. I have no idea whether, you like X, Y, and Z. I have no idea if you're going to like this, but you're not going to taste it anything that's like it. So check it out.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm like, penny for your thoughts. Chug this down and let me know. You know, give me your, and then like their face is always enough. Like the words are coming, but what you see on their face when they try agricole tells you whether you made a great choice or if like your friendship is like on the rocks a little bit.
It can be kind of like the meme. It's like a GIF of the woman who tries kombucha and she does the kind of like, you know, that. It's like maybe she likes it. Maybe you see like a journey in the facial expression. Yeah,
exactly. I used to call it. I used to be really big into beer until it made me fat, and I said, "Okay, beer's done." But I would call it. I would take my then girlfriend at the time to breweries, and I'd be like, "Hey, this is an amazing double imperial stout with blah, 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 blah. You know, the adjective paragraph was like this long.
Right.
And she would drink it and she would make this terrible face. And I was like, oh, that's stout face. And like
stout face.
You know, she doesn't make stout face anymore because like she loves stouts too. And like we drink beer from time to time, but in a much skinnier place these days. But when I give her something and she hates them, oh, that's stout face, you know.
Stout face. I love it. Can't fool anyone when stout face is out there.
Exactly.
So Jay, the last thing we always like to do on the show is a bonus optional rapid fire segment. You're already a great sport with giving the recommendations. I know that can be daunting, but you've also written 2,000 reviews, so it probably didn't intimidate you at all. So this segment is run by John. He comes up with the questions in advance. I sometimes see them, I sometimes don't, but my job is really just to be the official timekeeper. But if you are up for it, we would love to throw some rapid fire questions at you.
Yeah, lay it on me. This is, I think, I've been looking forward to this. Yeah.
All right. That's what I'm talking about. This is the real gauntlet.
You had an enthusiastic email response to it. So we knew from the start it was going to be a good interview.
Yeah. I mean, this is the fun stuff. Bring it on.
That's right. We got to land this puppy.
All right.
We're going to do it.
So I've got 60 seconds on the clock, John, and go.
All right. Neat or on the rocks?
Neat.
Column, pot, or blend?
Blend.
Molasses or cane juice rum?
Cane.
Your favorite spirit category to review?
Mezcal.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. The right answer was rum. You missed that one. It's the first time in rapid fire history if somebody's got something wrong.
But we'll move on. Audience, Jay.
Okay.
I knew it was coming, but it's fine. Go.
Name the country that consistently produces the world's best rum.
Jamaica.
Okay. Did Aficionados go with the XXX name because they're super duper Vin Diesel fans, or was it because that they're really into like hardcore?
We wanted people to know it was Hooch, and that was the best we had.
All right. Other than yourself, who is your personal favorite rum reviewer?
My buddy Kogan at Life Own Account.
All right. I heard this rumor. I just have to ask: are you in fact related to Kanye?
I wish, but no. Actually, no. What? Recently, I'm not.
Revised, yeah. Revised.
I have revised that. I wish I was as rich as Kanye. I want nothing to do with him.
Have you ever reviewed a spirit more than once? And if so, can we refer to that as a double take?
Absolutely, double take. All right.
What's one rum you never ever want to review again?
Stolen smoked rum. 100%.
All right, we covered that. Who in your mind is the most influential person in the rum world?
Luca bad, Kate Perry good.
Do you rate podcasts on the same scale as whiskey? And if so, what would you give the Rumcast? No, wait, don't answer that. Okay, maybe answer.
I'd give you a 10. You guys are the most fun.
That's what I'm talking about. All right.
Perfectly done.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jay. That was fun.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I love it.
Well, before we go, what is the best place for people to find out when the next Aficionados release is? I mean, I always hear about them on r/rum, so that's what I would recommend. Is there anywhere else people should keep up with you or follow you?
Totally. So three pieces of advice. If you're on Reddit a lot, find it at r/rum. I'm a moderator there. I had to double check for saying, I was like, there's very few places I'm not a moderator at, but like mentally I was like, does that pass the sniff test? Yes, I am a moderator because I can sticky them. So if you go to r/rum, you're lazy, look for the post in green at the top. If it is new since the last time you were there, it will have single cask information. If you just like to go to websites, bookmark something, check it out, put it on your RSS, go to aficionadosgroup.com, which will just tell you, hey, there is a new selection. It could be anything. It could be any spirit. But if you want, just give me that spirit news. It's not updated frequently. It's only updated when we have a new product. It will give you what it is, who it was selected by, all the statistics, and then also the link to go and buy it. And then the third, if you're the most passive consumer ever and you don't mind getting 10-to-1 bourbon emails, just sign up on the email list. Go to westspirits.com, go to aficionadosgroup.com, go to r/rum. If you sign up for the email list, you will get information about every Reddit community selection, whether it's bourbon, rye, rum, brandy, agave, scotch, gin. And you might get a lot of bourbon emails because we're picking bourbon at like 40 barrels a year and rum like 2 or 5. But if you
we're going to do something about that.
Dude, I would love to push more rum. It's crazy. I mean, you guys know this. Like bourbon is just insane, and I love bourbon. Bourbon is a huge passion. I can sell a barrel of bourbon in 2 minutes.
Right.
Rum takes.
Rum's a little more challenging.
rum, it's good. Like the people love it. Like that's also a huge bonus. Like I love working with the Aficionados because like, you know what? It's good rum. It will sell. And when it sells, it sells. And that's great. Like there's no pressure. I don't have that same pressure from my bourbon retailers. They just also know that, hey, this is going to sell in 2, 3, 4 minutes and then we'll move on to the next one. But yeah, I mean, and we release new rums even while the old rums haven't sold out yet, but they always do sell. They're picking up quicker. t8ke sold faster than I think anybody expected. I mean, because I meant to go back and buy like a lot more of it, and then one day someone was like,
the Legale and the New Yarmouth are both still available. I think some of the XXX rums are still available too. So go check those out, everyone. Order them. You heard all the backstory. You heard the process. So enjoy them now.
Yeah, Fiji, Jamaica, and Mauritius still have a couple left, but those are the 3 places. Reddit, if you love Reddit. Aficionados Group, if you want the occasional check-in. If you'd rather just wake up every morning and refresh your inbox and see if new rum has come, sign up for the email list. We're out here. We're doing the same thing in the same places. We're not going anywhere. And that's awesome. That's where you can find it.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing what comes next. And thanks so much for taking the time to hang out with us tonight. It was a blast.
Yeah, this has been a pleasure. It's very rarely that people are like, hey, you want to talk about rum for like kind of a while? And I'm like, yeah, I would love to, especially, my rum friends and I are distanced because of COVID and stuff. So this is extremely cool. Like I've been on a bunch of bourbon podcasts, but like rum podcasts are a little less frequent. And it's been an absolute pleasure. And I've loved talking to both of you.
Awesome, man. Well, we appreciate it. And can't wait to see what comes next.
Likewise. Thanks, Will and John.
Yep. Thanks, Jay.
Okay, we hope you enjoyed that interview with Jay West as much as we did. All the references to where you can find out more on him will be posted in the show notes, and you heard him talk about where to find him as well. As always, please join us for part of the conversation on social media, on Facebook and Instagram. We are the Rumcast, and you can find us on those platforms. And we love the feedback and the comments there, so please do, if you use those platforms, find us on there. Let us know you're enjoying the podcast. Let us know what you want to hear more of and any of that stuff.
Also, hey, leave us a review. We always love to see those reviews come in on Apple Podcasts. It's always helpful to know what people enjoy about the podcast. Plus, when you do that, it helps other rum fans find the show. So that's always something that we love to see happen. But other than that, I think that's it for this week, John.
I think I've got your co-host name, Will.
What is it?
It's The Professional.
Ooh.
You're the professional co-host.
The Professional.
Or a professional, if you prefer.
I like it. It's a good contrast to the People's co-host.
Yep. The professional and the People's. The alliteration is there and all.
I'll accept that. I like it. It's got a good ring to it. The professional and the People's co-host. It's good.
We're building something special here, Will.